We have, I think, a lot of reasons to be really positive on the rejoin side. Not only are we now seeing Brexiteers who were absolutely rabid in their voraciousness of trying to pull us completely out of the EU, like completely, and severing all ties, to now we have seen Brexiteers last week, of all things, Angela Leadsom being one of them, Rishi Sunak being another. Daniel Hannan has also said that rejoining the single market would be a good thing for the UK. Even though, of course, you may remember, that's the same Daniel Hannan who said that a vote for leave was never about leaving the single market, and only a fool would leave the single market and customs union. So they have now really been completely on the back foot. And I think it's because they're losing the arguments. I mean, they've lost and losing all the arguments completely. They lost the political argument for Brexit. They've completely lost that. The economic argument for Brexit, they have completely lost that as well. After all, we were meant to be being this global Britain and we would be amazing on the global stage. Wouldn't that be amazing, everyone? Recently in Conservative Home, their young whippersnapper of a young conservative, Will Armott, wrote about how Rishi Sunak should be embracing global Britain. And oh my God, all these countries want to come and do business in the UK. Well, not according to UK manufacturers. Not according to UK manufacturers. Not even when you look at the data, does that even now support his claim? And I just want to go through some of this stuff. This was in a news story this morning about this. It's what we've been saying all this time, that it doesn't matter because we've cut ourselves off from Europe being a big supply chain, being a big supply chub. The pandemic showed that shorter supply routes are better, and of course, there's no shorter supply route than just jumping across the channel to get to Germany, to get somewhere else. Pre-Brexit, you could get something from, I don't know, Munich over to like the UK in about a day. That's how quick it was if you needed it that quick. Maybe you could do it even quicker if you got like, non-stop. So the whole Brexit arguments are completely unraveling. And even now, with them saying how wonderful the single market membership is, they're now losing the argument that we should not rejoin these EU institutions and even eventually the EU. So there are a lot of pessimistic people out there who always go, well, rejoining won't happen for a long time. It will be difficult. What do you mean it'll be difficult? Rishi Sunak has just shown how easy it is to negotiate with the EU and to get into these types of things. And I want to remind people, single market membership was offered numerous times to the UK when Brexit initially happened. That did not change. And ultimately, I think if the UK did go, can we have back into the single market, and we'll follow all the rules and regulations, which again we would have to if we were going to do that, that would not be a problem. We've done that before. We've done just one bill called the EU Alignment Bill back in, 1993. I think it was part of the whole Maastricht Treaty, I believe, thing. We could easily do something like that again. It's not impossible. Especially now, as you are seeing Brexiteers, even Nigel Farage. If you were part of the Pony Club this week, you will have seen last week's video. Nigel Farage backing off from Brexit. Again, if you don't believe me, go down below, join the Pony Club. But on that note, please do also remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, do remember to please ring the bell as well. And of course, down below, there's a link to my Patreon page where you can also get access to the weekly videos as well. And of course, the Pony Club, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, the Buy Me Coffee link where you can, well, buy me a coffee. So, as always, thank you very much to everyone who does help and support the channel that way. So, let's go on into reading some of these comments that appear in this, because this just goes to show you the economic argument for Brexit is well and truly trashed beyond all recognition. And now that you're seeing, Northern Ireland gets to be in the single market, well, why not the rest of the UK? And does not surprise me, we're going to be seeing more of this. And eventually, businesses calling, yeah, can we just be part of the single market, please? Ultimately, that's what will start happening. Remember, that's what happened last time to spark us joining or at least the ECC as it was back then, the beginnings of course, the single market and customs union. So anyway, we'll just go quickly. Where is this comment? Because this is just goes to show it. So, they got a comment from the chief executive of Made in UK called Stephen Phillipson, and he basically said this. So, the Windsor Framework deal on the post-Brexit trade in Northern Ireland, he said, is what we need to reset our political and trading relationship with the EU, which has been marked by such rancor. I want to applaud the positive approach taken by the Prime Minister, which shows what can be achieved when you work pragmatically and collaboratively, rather than thumping the table or thumping the fist, thumping the table, or just issuing threats. Hopefully, the agreement reached last week will be beginning of a new chapter. And other thing that it also goes on to say is earlier this year, Made in UK said that more than 40% of manufacturers thought that the political chaos of last year had damaged the image of the UK as a place for foreign and direct investment. So there are a lot of, again, negative, not just from Europe, but around the world. And of course, this is another thing that it says in the report that they talk about here. A fifth of manufacturers has now said that they've reduced the number of suppliers not only from the EU in the last 12 months. The report also showed the UK's image has been damaged and its trading relationship was not just limited to partners in the EU, with over 35% of firms agreeing that suppliers from the rest of the world will now also cautious about about buying stuff from Britain. That is incredibly bad for our economy. If you've got people now not buying, because remember, Brexit was all about to be, oh yeah, it doesn't matter if we again leave Europe, because we'll be trading with the rest of the world. They'll be knocking down our doors, trying to do trade deals with us. Again, that's not happening. We're the ones having to knock on their doors, hoping they'll do a trade deal with us. And as we've seen with the Australian, the New Zealand trade deals, those have not been good trade deals. And the other deals that we have are not proper trade deals. They're rollover deals to be in place while a trade deal is negotiated. And it gets even worse, because one of the big things the UK was obviously known for was its big network of financial hubs. It was a financial institution. This was the place where you came for for financial services. And even now, this is now under threat, which is once again kind of funny, because we had a lot of Brexiteers going, "Oh, the city will be fine. The city will be what keeps the UK going." And I've said many a time that is also part of the problem. The fact that especially Conservatives have always just focused solidly on London and ignored the rest of the UK, which is why we've seen such a widespread difference between when you look at London versus the rest of the UK. So this is what another thing that I do have to look at, because you had Fabio Lassanti, who is one of the people in Citigroup Bank, a big US bank here that has a lot of, again, traders in the current UK. They are now not only moving more staff over to Paris, but they are now increasingly hiring more people to work in their Paris office than they are the UK. This sends a very, very worrying message that eventually, even though the UK still retains its current financial crown, give it 10, 15 years, that shift will have moved dramatically, meaning that that financial sector gone or even greatly diminished. I think it will be greatly diminished ultimately. And why? It's because people are more attracted to working in Paris, being in the single market. It's not just Paris. We're seeing offices in Frankfurt and Amsterdam as well being opened by these other different banking groups. So, if the one thing the UK was obviously known for was its financial sort of services, then, well, give it, again, 10, 15 years, all that financial, those the services, that knowledge will be going over into Europe, and we won't have that anymore. And that ultimately will lead to a big loss in GDP. So, you know, this is what I now expect. I generally do now expect we will now start to see more conservatives talking up the single market and how good the single market was and how good it was to have that, that free trade. And oh, maybe we should be members of the single market. And oh, maybe we can be like Norway, because obviously even Nigel Farage backing the referendum. What's so wrong with the UK being like Norway, he said at the time. And even Farage's own plan, which if it had been, they'd gone through that, and Farage's group had led the referendum campaign, we would have had 2 to 3 votes on how on our choice whether we have decided to stay in the single market or not, and even a cooling off vote. So we would initially had the Brexit vote, then about 3 to 4 years, 5 years later, we'd have had another vote. So we wouldn't have left. We'd have had another vote to say, yes, that confirms the Brexit vote. Again, just to show you how desperately they are to keep that, because they knew the wafer thin majority they had in that vote. Like I say, you look at the polls and all the other things. There's a couple of things that said if the referendum had been a week later or even a week earlier, Remain would have won. So again, we are now seeing this big reversal. And I think it's now people just living with the reality, now really understanding what Brexit had actually done. And of course, we tried to talk about this, but of course, as I said many, many times, some of this stuff was really complicated to talk about to people. You could not just stop people in the streets and say, oh, vote for Brexit because we'll get sovereignty, we'll take back control of our laws, and we'll get £350 million a week for the NHS. You couldn't stop someone in the street and say, look, here's the advantages of the single market and access you have to the benefits of the manufacturing. You'd be there for like a good 10 and 15 minutes. You cannot do that when you're trying to campaign for something like that. I always said that was a big weakness that the Remain campaign did not, look into. But hey, lessons learned for next time. So, as always, and next time will maybe be sooner than we think. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, we'll see you all next time.